A lot of Star Wars fans, and me included, are purists. Saying that means that we like Star Wars as it was created and released into the movies. Now, George, in his infinite wisdom, came back and redid a whole bunch of stuff in Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi because he said that when he created it, that either he wasn't happy with it or else the technology wasn't up to par to where he could do what he wanted to. Hence the cantina scene and things on the Death Star and other things. I saw an article where it says it was going to talk about 5 of the worst changes in Star Wars made from the original cuts, meaning the first 3 trilogies. And I agree with all of these, except maybe, you know what? I do think they're the worst. So I want to read through this article and see what your thoughts are and see if you agree with this article. And if you're enjoying this content, don't forget to subscribe and like this video. All right, let me pull it up. All right, it says 5 worst changes Star Wars made from the original cuts. There we see Jabba and Han. Over the many years of the film's existence, Star Wars original trilogy has undergone many transformations as technology has evolved far beyond what it was available at the time of their creation. But there are quite a few changes fans consider the worst. The Mandalorian creator, Jon Favreau, has publicly stated that he does not believe Disney will ever be willing to release the original cuts of the first 3 films in any official capacity. So it may be the case that these are the versions of the films viewers will be stuck with forever. Despite how many adjustments there may be that actually improve the films, many more have only served to leave fans pondering what George Lucas could have possibly been thinking. In the mid-1970s, Lucas and his team at Industrial Light and Magic had seemingly captured lightning in a bottle with A New Hope, accomplishing visual feats considered to be out of this world for films of its time and contributing to hold such a standard for the 2 following movies. However, as humanity crossed the threshold into the digital age, the film's original effect had fallen out of style with modern audiences, and Lucas felt the new technology could help get him closer to achieving his original vision for the trilogy. From as early as 1997 all the way to as recent as 2019, a slew of remasters and special editions would be released and plague the legacy of Luke Skywalker's saga, exposing fans to some of the most absurd and inexplicable decisions made within the entire history of Star Wars. Jon Favreau is sadly right about the Star Wars OT theatrical cuts. Number 5. Too many stormtroopers. A famous scene in A New Hope sees Han Solo brazenly charging after a squad of stormtroopers to provide an opening for Luke and Leia to escape to the Millennium Falcon. The original cut sees the same stormtroopers turning and firing on Han once they reach the hangar, causing him to retreat. The revision to this scene added an extra dozen or so stormtroopers into the hangar to create a more imposing visual for Han to flee from, but ends up feeling more like an Imperial clown car with a ridiculous amount of stormtroopers crammed into a single shot. Granted, the scene is meant to evoke a sense of comic relief as a small break from the constant threat of danger aboard the Death Star, but this addition simply made it too comical. Number 4. Hayden Christensen's Force Ghost. Amidst the celebration of the Empire's defeat in the final scene of Return of the Jedi, the Force spirits of Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Master Yoda stand side by side for the final time as their stories are completed, but Lucas simply couldn't let that be the end of it. Decades later, following the initially mixed success of the prequel trilogy, this special feature had actor Hayden Christensen come back to reprise his version of Anakin Skywalker from Revenge of the Sith to be added where it blatantly did not fit. Originally, this ending scene had actor Sebastian Shaw continuing his role as the unmasked face of Darth Vader to portray the Force ghost of an aged Anakin Skywalker, but given his face is only previously seen during Vader's death, Lucas felt it didn't hit hard enough to belong in the climax of the series. Instead, Lucas opted to replace him with the more recognizable Christensen and waved the illogical outcome of Anakin essentially reverting to his younger self in death by saying it was because he was good again. Number 3, Jabba the Hutt in A New Hope. In his original introduction, Jabba the Hutt fit perfectly as a minor antagonist at the beginning of Return of the Jedi to establish that substantial threats inhabited the galaxy aside from just the Empire, and the several mentions made to him throughout the trilogy without actual seeing him until the first appearance reinforces this. The initial special edition of A New Hope threw this out the window as it chose to reintroduce a deleted scene that saw Jabba himself coming to Mos Eisley to search for Han briefly after Han as a character was even established. Disregarding Jabba's horrendous new CG appearance, this scene only serves to bog down every element it touches, establishing the Hutt as a meager pushover of a crime boss with the way he converses with Han and renders the earlier scene with Greedo hunting down Han for Jabba redundant. Number 2, Greedo shoots first. Speaking of the infamous Rhodian gunslinger, no other change made to the original trilogy holds quite as much controversy as the shot fired from the blaster of Greedo, the bounty hunter. Just after the very first scene that viewers are introduced to Han Solo, he's held at gunpoint by one of Jabba the Hutt's hired killers and gets himself out of the volatile situation with methods that are meant to be indicative of his true character. While keeping a cool head, he casually converses with his assailant before taking the first opening he's given to pull the trigger and leave the bounty hunter face down and smoking. The atrociously awkward edits were given across several remastered editions, make an attempt at undoing the implication of Han's moral ambiguity by giving Greedo the first shot by a matter of milliseconds while Han's neck bends unnaturally out of the way, with a tone-deaf revision that seems to think this one instance dictates Han's character. This scene change has only served to alienate fans for years over something that never needed to be changed. Number 1, Cy Snoodle's musical number. Return of the Jedi received what was undoubtedly the most bombastic revision to the original trilogy, with a big, unnecessary musical number performed by an obnoxious cast of hideous CG aliens that felt more akin to something out of the Muppets than it did Star Wars. Admittedly, the song played by Max Rebo and Cy Snoodles in the theatrical release was far from perfect, but it did its job of setting a dangerously grimy and debaucherous tone to Jabba's palace that the new piece put in its grave. The song from the special edition, confusingly titled Jedi Rocks, takes the scene from feeling like a grim den of killers and thieves to what could be a sci-fi rendition of a Chuck E. Cheese shockingly fast. According to the producers of the special edition, Lucas was disappointed that he was unable to pull off such a musical number in the film's original version. But why he ever felt such a juvenile sequence would benefit a scene involving the brutal death of Twi'lek dancer Ula at the hands of Jabba's Rancor continues to baffle fans to this day. So there you go. There's the 5 items that they mentioned in this article. And let's go through them real quick. Okay, too many stormtroopers. I noticed that in the rendition when Han was running down the corridor and he stops and it looks like there's hundreds of stormtroopers now in that big area, and I didn't think that it added any to the comic, like the author said. It didn't add any to the comic relief that Han Solo was doing. If there were that many people, he would have been dead for sure, because there's no way they could have missed. I mean, there's all those, jokes about stormtroopers always missing, but there is no way with that many stormtroopers shooting at Han Solo in that hallway that they would have missed. So yeah, I agree. That was too much. Hayden Christensen's Force Ghost, I hated it. Hated it. There was no reason for him to put that in there. It was such a dramatic scene where Luke loses his dad, and then he has the part where he burns his dad on the pyre, and then he sees Obi-Wan, Yoda, and then his dad, and then they put Hayden Christensen in there. That was just bullcrap. Jabba the Hutt, yeah, they originally had a human, just a regular human in this big furry vest, talking to him as Jabba the Hutt, but George Lucas wanted to have an alien as Jabba the Hutt, so he took that out of Star Wars and waited till they could get CGI. And I think they revised it like 2 or 3 times before they left the one that they have in there. So I think, you know, they should take it out. It doesn't add anything to the movie at all. Greedo shot first. Han Solo shot first. There was no Greedo shooting, and like they said, you know, erases his bad boy image. And Sice Noodles in Jabba's palace. First time I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, that is just ridiculous, especially with the backup singers in the background. I started laughing. I didn't think it was, the guy's right. It made it look like the Muppets, and they turned Jabba's den of villainy into a Chuck E. Cheese. There's one other thing that I didn't like, and that was in Return of the Jedi, they added Darth Vader saying "No" when he picked up the Emperor and threw him down the chute. I didn't really dig that. And and then they took Luke in The Empire Strikes Back, and when he's hanging there and he finds out that Darth Vader is his dad, I don't know if it's in the newest revision, but I remember there was a revision where he jumps and he makes this like screaming noise, like he's killing himself. Why did they have him like scream bloody murder? I don't know if anybody else remembers that, but I do. I watched The Empire Strikes Back with my kids just a couple weeks ago, and I didn't hear it, but I remember watching it after it had been revised, and he just screams, and I'm like, what was the purpose of that? But anyway, those are 5 things that they changed in the Star Wars original trilogy, and I agree with the author that they were horrible things to do. But if you want to know why Star Wars is the best, check out my video right here, and it will tell you. And it's a great video. May the Force be with you always.